Hello, Dr. Vikki Petersen here. I'm going to talk to you today about a topic I actually don't like to discuss, but I'm asked it so often that I think it deserves some attention. I recently wrote a blog on it, so I'm going to do a video as well. And that is a question that patients voice a lot, which is when they hear about root cause medicine and they understand what it's doing for them, they frequently ask one of two questions. One is, why don't other doctors do this? It makes so much sense. Or, why is it that the medical profession pushes drugs exclusively and never talks to me about, well, maybe gives some lip service to diet and lifestyle, but not in a degree that it's really going to make a change and implement a change in their lives the way we do here. And then patients who don't really know too much about root cause medicine can come in and say, well, I'm not comfortable with root cause medicine because it's not what I hear on television and it's not what I hear from my traditional doctor. So I don't think this can be right because, I hear I should take drugs and that's what the government tells me I should take. So that must mean it's safe and it's the right thing to do. And it's really at that juncture I get a little frustrated because our health status is so poor in this country. There are tremendous side effects from drugs. There are a tremendous amount of deaths from drugs. I'm not saying nobody should ever have a drug, but the point is that here at Health Now, we look at drugs as a temporary measure to get you out of a crisis situation, and then we do our work, get to the root cause of the problem so that we can wean you off the drug because you literally don't need it anymore. That to me is true medicine, is you're repairing the entire body so it doesn't require this crutch anymore. Now, is that for everyone? No, I understand. Some people are too far gone and you can't do that. But in the vast majority of cases, you can. So why is it that people don't hear about it? What is the reason? And I don't like talking about the greed of pharmaceutical companies. And I don't like talking about the greed of researchers. I mean, when you think about researchers, you think of these lovely people, which most of them are, by the way, don't get me wrong, who are committed, they've committed their lives to research and helping humanity. And as I said, many of them are, but we have more and more problems. So let me get into some of the facts that are true, but I know I don't like to talk about them, but here you go. A lot of what we assume from research, these unbiased results, sorry, I'm looking at notes because there's a lot of information, but as I said, we assume science is unbiased, and I remember several years back looking at a study and saying, that can't be right, and I'm a bit naive inherently, I'll admit to that. People make fun of me for it, but there you go. And someone said to me, well, look at the affiliation, and researchers are asked to honestly state their affiliation to any company. So in other words, if a researcher is hired by Coca-Cola to see whether all that sugar in Coke is causing obesity, then if Coke hired them to do the study, one, you expect them to be honest, and two, you expect them to cite their affiliation. It turns out on the order of it's about 50-50, researchers don't cite their affiliations. But when they are honest, at least you could look. And so I finally learned that when a study didn't quite make sense, is to look at the affiliation if it was stated, and then you could see, oh, this was paid for by Coca-Cola. That's why, sadly, they found that sugar had nothing to do with obesity. We know better than that. You know better than that. But if out in the paper it says, oh, hey, hot news, sugar actually doesn't make you fat, then oh, it's a study. Oh my goodness, phew, I don't have to worry about sugar anymore. No, it's not. The researcher got paid by this company to skew the results. That's the bottom line. I hate to say it, but it's true. So then what has happened is that because you had to cite your affiliation, companies that were doing unethical things like paying researchers to throw out results that were not beneficial to them made basically shell companies. So this happened looking at secondhand smoke. So what happened was, I just have to find the name of this company. Hold on one second, here it is. So if you read a research paper and it said secondhand smoke really actually didn't cause any damage, and the researcher was affiliated with a company that had this name, the Foundation for Lung Cancer Early Detection, Prevention, and Treatment. You'd say, wow, that sounds like a very nice organization. It turns out, though, that good-sounding organization is actually a shell company of Liggett Group. Liggett Group used to be called Liggett and Myers Tobacco Company. No wonder they dropped the tobacco company from their name. So they dropped tobacco from their name, then formed a shell company, paid researchers, and so what this research found was that every study, because there were differing results from secondhand smoke. Some studies found it to be very detrimental, some found it to be fine. Every single one that found it to be fine was underwritten by a tobacco company. Makes sense, right? It makes sense, but should it make sense? I mean, shouldn't we be outraged? Shouldn't we feel deceived? You are being deceived, and Coca-Cola did do that just not several months ago. Oh, well, maybe more like 6-8 months ago. There was a lot of ads coming out about, oh, it was in the paper, oh, they found sugar doesn't cause obesity. And at the same time, there were a lot of more Coke commercials of, Coke is a healthy part of life, and, no, it's not. It's got tons of sugar, and it is associated with obesity and diabetes and cancer, for that matter. But there was this whole push to show that all that sugar was not causing obesity, but it was done by these shell companies for Coca-Cola. So I'm sorry, it's a little depressing, but that's the truth of it. And it's happening with pharmaceutical companies in a very, very, very big way. I don't know if you remember or you ever heard, but there was a psychiatrist back a few years now, and he was fined. Well, GlaxoSmithKline, a huge pharmaceutical company, was fined millions of dollars because they were giving kickbacks to doctors. This particular doctor worked at Emory University, and he signed a form with Emory that he would never accept more than $10,000 a year in monies to promote in any affiliation. So he was affiliated with GlaxoSmithKline, and instead of $10,000, he made like 20 times that in a given year. And the total was close to $1 million, I guess, by the time it was all said and done. But this doctor went around the country lecturing to fellow doctors, promoting GlaxoSmithKline, but never letting the doctors know that he had any affiliation. Because I go to medical seminars, and when I see the affiliations of doctors, then you put a little bit of a grain of salt associated with it. But if they're not forthcoming, then it's hard to know. There was another company that got sued because they gave doctors kickbacks for using their medical devices. They were doing hip replacements and knee replacements, and they were giving kickbacks to the doctors to choose their medical device. And if you're having a scary surgery like a knee surgery or a hip surgery, you're going to want to hope that your doctor's choosing the medical device that's best for you, not best for him or her. So those are the sad truths. With these shell companies, it's very, very difficult. Nobody has the wherewithal readily to do the kind of research, to go through somebody's to go through a company's tax records to find out that they're being underwritten by a pharmaceutical company or a tobacco company. I just find this data as I can. But what I know is that root cause medicine works. Respecting the human body works, and when I hear studies that don't make sense, it's usually because there's a falsehood associated with them. So I will do my level best to tell you honestly what I'm learning and what we're learning in the field of functional medicine and root cause medicine, and I will share that with you, and that's what I think you deserve. So until next time, I wish you very good health.